Hello, English-speaking people. This is Dr. Carlos Sánchez, the writer of the Holocaust of all times. We're finalizing the 12 chapters of the INCAS. And Atahualpa is baptized. He's not burned because he wants to preserve his body as a mummy, because he wants to live for eternity with the mummies of his ancestors. So he dies by the tourniquet on the night of July 26, 1534, and with that was the end of the Inca civilization, and then we start to be basically the slaves of the Spaniards for the next 500 years, and we still continue being under the supervision or esclavization of the descendants of the Spaniards. And I think the book should end over there, but what I do is I join all the INCAS, the 13 INCAS in Machu Picchu. I'm sure many of you have been in Machu Picchu. There's a big camera in there, a big room of stones, ideal to have a council of the 13 INCAS, which I call it's a council of the 13 INCAS. And we start to deliberate. What are we going to do? I mean, they tell me you read you read the history of the Incas, but now that we know what happened, what are we going to do for the future of our descendants? And in essence, we join very Machu Picchu as phantasms, I guess. Then one by one, the Incas start to come in, and obviously many of them, they have their own problems, their own fights, and they start to, start to throw stones at each other, and so on. And eventually, Manco Cápac, comes to the conclusion that we must do something after having traveled through our chapters, all the problems that happened with the Incas. Now that we're no longer Incas, but Indians, he tries to see how can we recover our lands, our dignity, especially our dignity. So that's basically chapter 12. So that's what we're going to be reading today, and I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, Sunday. Thank you.
13. The Council of the 13 Incas appealing before the International Criminal Court at The Hague, the only hope for the redemption of all the Indians in the Americas from world oppression. Manco Cápac, as if he were a Christ with his apostles, gathers the 12 Incas in the lost city of Machu Picchu to deliberate the future of their descendants. One by one, they enter a massive Neolithic stone chamber following in succession after the white-haired Manco Cápac. As Atahualpa enters, all eyes center on the man who ended with the empire. I see their questioning looks at this unbelievable gathering, and I address them, my forefathers, in the futility of my being we have assembled to heal the horrors of our history and find ways to recover our dignity. Oh, man of the future! It is a new millennium. The centuries have turned our bones into dust and our memories to fog, but our essence will continue in our descendants. Incas. We all have journeyed with Kunter Soul, who found solace in learning of his ancestors, and anguish for the legacy that we have left to them. He has assembled us to dissipate the pathos of his past, fathom the chaos of the present, and ponder on the hopelessness of their future. Great Manco Cápac, as our patriarch, you will preside over these meetings to lead us in the right path. Man of the times, why do you want to expose the wounds of our past? Because they are still open. We need to heal them, even if those scars remain in our souls forever. Kunter Soul, we now know what our former times have done to our descendants, it is time that we must write our history for the generations to come. Sinchi Roca, my son, what do you do after my departure? Father, I followed your Pacific teachings. But the people that you united made our lives impossible. Great-grandfather of the ages, that is why I began to divide the city for a better government. Inca Roca, my great-grandson, division has always been the roots of our problems. Father Inca, I lived under that anarchy. If I were to recount my sorrowful childhood, we could be deliberating for days by whom and why. Inca of the bloody tears, let us continue without the ills of our past, so that we can comprehend the plight of our descendants. As the other Incas reminisced of their times, the evening fell in the silence of the city of stones where one falls in a trance in the mysticism of its unknown past. Next morning, the sun arose, and it seemed to move fast in a closed firmament of high peaks. Kunter Soul, you are talking of Inti as a moving body and not as our creator? Father Manco Capac, the man of the future is right in questioning the godliness of the sun. We deified Inti for so long that I felt that we should have had another idol closer to our thoughts. Inca Huayracocha, are you the one who revived the divinity of Tichi Huayracocha Paquiachakic? Our patriarch, I urge you not to involve us in matters of religion. If you do, you will derail the purpose of these council meetings, which is to recover our dignity. Kunter Soul, are there no divine entities in the great beyond, but powerful men on earth who create gods to control our thoughts? Great Patriarch, that is the history of humanity, and why we should stay clear out of our own beliefs. For we may offend the deepest feelings of others. Inca Huayracocha, is it you who almost ended our dynasty by abandoning Cuzco? Father Manco Capac, in our old age sometimes we become oblivious to our duties. We procreate so that new generations carry on with our destiny. Great Manco Capac, these council meetings are not to place blame on anyone but to deliberate on how to overcome what befell us. Kunter Soul, adversities committed by one's own leaders should not be forgotten. Great Patriarch, our downfall was not a single event but a series of misdeeds committed in the past that are still being perpetrated in the present. Father Manco Capac, I was the one who guided our budding nation to become an empire. But my actions to reach to that end may be reproached. Pachacutic, sometimes the ends justify the means. That is why the man of the future has taken this trip to see how our people can improve in those means to better their destiny. Father, I am a man of action. It is preposterous of the man of the future to think that by rewriting our history we are going to improve the situation of our descendants. We must face our fate with strength, if we are going to regain what was taken from us by force. Great Pachacutic, you still have that warrior spirit. Sometimes we can achieve much more with the power of our words to reach our opponents. However, that adversary is in us, and there is no greater enemy than one's own. Kunter Soul, words alone will never accomplish anything. Pachacutic, as I have mentioned before, there was once a dispersed people who reversed their sorrowful past with the power of the written word. We can't follow what others have done. We are a different race. Pachacutic, we all belong to the family of men. The difference is how each nation forges the soul of its people to counteract the ills of mankind. Kunter Soul, all our endeavors were swiftly accomplished through war, and how Pachacutic built an empire. Tupac Yupank, what worked in your times is not necessarily the way in our present. We have to reach to the descendants of the people who committed injustices against our ancestors, and give them a chance to rectify the wrongs done by their forebears. However, rectification of past misdeeds are the hardest to be accepted. Nevertheless, some nations are making reparations to the very people whose ancestors were humiliated. Man of the future, you are involving foreign nations to undo our misery. We are the only ones who can change our destiny. Tupac Yupank, the Earth is one planet and as such we belong to the human species. Unfortunately we are not considered as part of it, and we are still being undermined by the appellative of a subjugated race. We should start by asking the world community to change our denomination of Indian for a proper name that does justice to the original inhabitants of the American continent. We can no longer allow the world to use that disrespectful noun, which in itself defeats our mission of recovering our dignity. Man of the future, do you think that by eradicating that despicable surname, we are going to change our fate? If we can abolish the word Indian, it would mean that we have reached the consciousness of humanity. Because if one does not have dignity, all is irrelevant. Then by what name should we be called? Tupac, all nations have a historical connotation of who they are. We were an advanced civilization, and we are now a subjugated people. Yeah. Not only our name of Inca has been changed, but the usurpers had the audacity to rename the empire with that of an obscure river that is not even in our own lands. What pride is in that for our descendants? Huayna Capac, I don't know if we should change the name of Peru to its original Inca name of Tawantinsuyo. Many of our compatriots have died with that given name on their lips. Kunter Sol. By losing our historical denomination we have also lost our identity, and why we should regain our territorial identification. Inca, what we must regain is our dignity among ourselves. Man of the future, how do you propose to do that? By treating ourselves as equals. Only then we can begin to restore our decor. We did maintain our dignity until the foreigners came. Yes, you did. But when the Incas became powerful, they also planted the seeds of indignity in the empire. Man of the times, you said that we must not fault other for our own debacles.